Hey, I think we can start it now. Good morning, everyone. So, if you have not been in these workshops, I would like to just introduce myself. My name is Vartuhi, and I have the privilege of serving as the Business Counselor Manager at PACE organization. On behalf of the City of Glendale's Economic Development Division and PACE organization, I would like to extend a warm welcome to each of you for the final session of our procurement series, which is a part of Let's Grow Glendale initiative. I want to also thank you once again, the City of Glendale, for this partnership opportunity. So today, we are excited to bring you the RFP review and proposal session. Just as in our previous sessions, this segment will be presented by my colleague, Andrew Barrera, our procurement relationship manager, who has a wealth of experience and knowledge in this field. I encourage you to write your questions using the Q&A feature or chat box, and we will address them at the end of the presentation. I would like to also mention that at PACE Business Development Center, we assist small businesses. So if you have any query or need help, then feel free to contact us. I will share our contact details in the chat. So without further ado, I'd like to hand this stage over to my colleague, Andrew. Andrew, it's all yours. Thank you.
Okay, great. Right, I'd like to welcome everybody here to this special program offered through the City of Glendale. Just know that PACE stands for the Pacific Asian Consortium and Employment. We're a very large economic development agency that has many functions, but under the business development or business department, we have a contract with the MBDA, the Minority Business Development Agency. It's through the Department of Commerce. We also have a contract with the state of California through the Governor's Office of Business and Economic Development. And we have other contracts as well. We're a lender. We're an SBA approved lender. So we're a full service agency that can really help whatever your issue is in business. We have expertise to assist you. So under this particular series, we're talking about contract. Now, when we talk about procurement, really all that procurement is how do you source contract opportunities, okay, revenue sources, and how do you secure them? And that's what we're here now. We're at this particular stage, we're talking about RFPs and RFQs, which are requests for proposals or requests for qualifications. Also, there's many acronyms that we can go under. So as you can see here, the traditional one that we know are RFPs, request for proposal. That's where a business or a utility company or a government agency puts out they have a need and they're looking for contractors to fulfill that need. As you can see, a request for qualifications, that's a little bit different. That can be either a proposal or it could be a government or an entity can say, we want to see who's qualified out there in the commercial world that are qualified to meet what we need, either in product or services. Then you have requests for information. That's primarily used also to see what is out in the community and seeing what are, and the procurement officers can use a RFI, request for information, to identify pre-qualified vendors or suppliers or contractors. So they kind of want to put it out there because they can say maybe in February we're looking to put a request for proposal out, but we want to see who's interested in possibly contracting with us. Then you got a request for a quote. That's generally when it comes to product. So let's say you have unique product, and let's say you manage a transportation fleet, and we're looking for just a price on that. So it's either purchasing product or a very narrow contract opportunity that we're looking for. And those are generally the easier ones to do. And just like invitation for bid. So as you can see, they're different names, but they're basically either trying to pre-qualify qualified vendors, or that they're announcing that there is an opportunity to contract and we're looking for the best contractor out there to provide the service that we're looking for. Okay, so let's talk about requests for proposals. As you can see, what an entity, either a corporation, utility, or a government agency is looking for, we're looking for technical experience. We're looking to see if you have any specialized capability to perform a service or a product, provide a product, or that we're seeking something very specific. So in essence, it's kind of like an announcement to our geographical world, whoever is within our jurisdiction, to be able to provide the service. And just keep in mind that when we, as a former procurement officer, I know that, let's say the contract is coming to an end and we want to find new vendors that we can consider for a program or for a contract to provide a service or a product. And so this is the process, the protocol that is utilized by a department or a government agency or a private sector company or a utility company in how they can put out to the world what contracts that we're looking for. And as you can see here, sometimes, so like for instance, before I came back to Pace, I was operating my own company, and I have background in transportation. And one of the local cities that hired me wanted to see, they hadn't changed their shuttle service in 20 years. So we know that the existing company that was operating that had older equipment, older technology. We wanted to see what else is new out there. And, the GPS, and there's fuel efficient vehicles, and maybe new types of routing. And, we were looking for a fresh perspective, potential new vendors, and increase the pool of vendors. And so it's often used as a tool to see where has the technology gone, and trying to find things that are more efficient and cost effective, and that can provide the service that we need, either for our constituencies or our client base or our workforce, whatever the particular need is. Okay. But keep in mind, one of the main points that I was looking for is a former transportation director, was I want to see what new technologies are out there. And so, those are the types of things that are put out. Okay. Now, request for qualifications, that's a little bit different. Okay. Request for qualifications is, we're really looking for companies that already have experience in addition to the expertise to provide a service. So that's what we're looking for. So that means that I am looking for a company that has a track record of performance with either agencies or companies or contracts that provide the similar or exactly the same service, or the dollar amount, and maybe the same complexity. So request for qualifications is kind of pushing through some of the startups and the ones that are not quite ready yet to land the type of contract that we're willing to provide. That doesn't mean for you out there that are kind of new, it's really important that you understand each of these protocols. And so, but frequently, we put out a request for qualifications when we were looking for a shuttle service. and new technologies. So we really wanted to increase the pool of vendors, because the more vendors that are involved, we have new fresh perspectives, we got new technologies, we got new ways of doing things. You can be more efficient, you can have a higher quality cutting edge product. So that's the kind of thing that we're looking for. We're not looking for the same old thing. Okay, the same old thing will guide us and fundamentally what we need. But in your company, if we want to make sure that you're cutting edge, that you remember, I'm looking for you as the expert. I'm not the expert. I know what I need as a, I know that I got to move, let's just say 1 million people a year, but all I know is the old way based on the past contractor, and I'm looking for new ways, new methodologies, more efficient ways, more cost efficient. Okay. And another real important thing is we're seeing a generation of change where, I represent the baby boomers, and I even have some folks that are a little older than me. I don't know what they're called, octogenarians possibly. And so they sometimes are really fixed on how they approach a service. Now, some of them, if they remain cutting edge, then, we're going to go back to them. But I'm looking for new, fresh minds, new perspectives, so for some of you that are a little bit younger, please know that that is actually a benefit and that you bring a new perspective. And I'm looking for that fresh set of eyes and this new way of thinking and performing a service. So that's why it's really critical for you as a business owner that you get that. You realize that that is one of your, makes you stand out. It's a differentiator. And, like what I say is when I have trouble with technology, I go and try to find a younger, smart person to help me, because they grew up around technology and they have a better understanding. And I see great value in that. So when I'm looking at requests for qualifications, those are some of the subtle things that I'm looking for. And those are some of the things that you need to recognize within your own staff and your own abilities that could set you apart and make you more competitive. Now, remember, there's no easy contracts, okay? It's a competitive market, and we want it to be competitive because we want companies to compete and to get to a short list and then find out who's the best value. And best value is not only lowest bid, but experience and methodologies of how to perform. And so those are the types of things that we look for. Okay, so as I was talking about just right now, when I put a RFP out or any of those invitation to bid or request for a quote, I'm really looking for 4 main things, as you can see here. Any unique, do you have your industry evolving? So, so that like the pandemic, the COVID pandemic, it changed, we shut down the economy to a degree, but all of a sudden we started seeing technology, like Zoom here, more technology and web-based and e-commerce, and they were starting to evolve in their expertise and how they reached out and how they took advantage of the technology to reach clients and to provide top quality services. So new methodologies or a specialized product. So if you're providing a product, I was meeting with a client yesterday, and they make cabinets, and they did pretty well. They did over $2 million in 2022, but they saw a little bit of a decline this year. So we're trying to figure out, okay, well, what makes you stand out different? And one of the things that we discussed is, are your shutters and cabinets and doors that you make for commercial or residential, are they energy efficient? Are they fire retardant? You know, is your product going to last? You know, and it's designed to protect the home or the office from the elements. So those were nuanced things in a product that we were trying to bring out. And so that's the critical type of thinking, that if you get an RFP and you want to bid on a proposal, that you need to explore. And we can help you with that. But remember, what we're looking for is critical thinkers. And now it's not only about providing the service or the product, okay, because I'm going to assume you're an expert. But now what we're talking about is business development strategies, your business model. How are you sourcing contracts? You know, and if you're not a good writer, okay, a lot of people, like my father was really good as a union carpenter, and he knew how to read blueprints and how to build beautiful things. But we're talking about, how do you source a contract? How do you apply for it? You know, and so RFPs, when we're going to go through that, has a very structured approach. Now, a lot of people get real turned off and they say, oh man, that proposal was 288 pages. That's too much for me. Well, that's not the way to look at it. Okay, we want to look at it, take a hard look, and understand that proposals are made up in sections. And we're going to go through that, what sections you should look at first. And if it looks like something you can do, you're going to get a hold of us, enroll with us, and we can go through the RFP or the RFQ or whatever the document is together and see if it really aligns up with what you can do, what your company does. And we want to pull the trigger, then we can go for it. And what do we need to do? What's the format? Okay. What kind of support documents do I need? What insurance levels? So there's steps. And as long as you attack it like that, realize there's a checklist of things that we need to address. And do we have all of that in our business infrastructure, in our business model? Then we can go for it. So I say, never say no. Let's take a hard look at it, and let's see if it's viable. But it also looks at, okay, not only in unique product or in methodologies to perform, but we do want to see your executive staff and key skilled staff. Because if you're a good manager, we can see that on the type of contracts that you get, your accounts receivables, and the type of staff that you have, and the type of services that you're providing, are establish your credentials and that you're qualified to do it. Past history, okay? So there's a thing you could say, I could do this and I could do that, but have you actually ever done it? So if we can point to, we've worked on this contract, or even my company hasn't done that contract, but I worked for another company that we did that, that means that skill set belongs to your company now, and you have that. And then, of course, it got to be a competitive bid. You know, it's not chasing the shiny coin and we're going to make a lot of money. It's a competitive. You could put, yeah, I want to have a 40% profit margin, and you have somebody that may be slightly more qualified and is going after a 20% profit margin. I guarantee you, you're not going to get the contract. So we got to understand that, okay? And we're here to help you do that, okay? So basically what an RFP is, and it kind of goes through all of them, but it's a call. It's an open call to action. Hey, we have a need. We need to buy 10,000 widgets, and we need somebody to deliver it on time. And then we may need another subcontractor to actually install those widgets in our company's machinery. So it's an open call for services. So sometimes, and for some of you that are maybe registered in vendor portals like RAMP, and you'll see a contract that comes out, and they'll send you an invitation to bid. Okay, RAMP is a platform used by the city of Los Angeles to make announcements of contract opportunities. And sometimes when you look at them, you'll see numerous next codes. Okay, and if you don't know what a next code is, you need to learn. That's the North American Industry Classification System. So every service that's out there, whether you're a beautician or a caterer or an IT specialist, or you're a doctor or an attorney or an engineer, each of those, or electrician, each of those professions have a 6-digit code. And when you register into the portals, those portals have a bid match component that will match your next code to the contract opportunity. And then sometimes you look at what the bid opportunity is, request for proposal, and you may see multiple, which means I'm not only looking just for your company's services, but maybe multiple. And remember, on government contracts, what we call public works or public projects, generally there's numerous contractors that are needed to perform on that. So that's what's really important. Now, one real important thing here is it says here RFP compliance. So the easiest way to get your proposal thrown out is you're not effectively reading the RFP and adhering to the format and the things that they're looking for. So it's not just you forcing your way in. If you want to get a $100,000 contract, a $50,000 contract, a $500,000 contract, $1 million contract or more, we need to become experts in understanding the RFP process. And if that's somewhere where you feel a little bit weak, we can help you. All right. But as an effective, prudent business manager, okay, we're going to expect that you need to be able to concentrate and understand that this is where I can get millions of dollars in revenue through the lifetime of my company. So if this is what I need to do in order to get a contract, then I need to understand it. And remember, nobody knows everything, so you want to build a team. And maybe you have a contract development team or a procurement strategy team. They could help you source contracts. They could help you read and interpret what the RFP opportunity is, and then how to write a proposal and make a bid budget. So all of those things are real important. Now you can see here, I put impartiality because that's what it's supposed to be, especially in the government, that everybody has a fair shot at it. But I'm going to tell you from personal knowledge, most contract awards are subjective. That means that whoever's making the ultimate decision may like you more than another company. So we need to make sure that we adhere in our proposals, that we clearly understand and represent ourselves in being an effective communicator that sets you apart. So even though I like this other company, because I just happen to like her name of the company and I know that she can do the work, I want to interrupt that thinking and say, look at us, we're highly qualified as well. In fact, we're more qualified. We're a better match for for what you need that you're looking to contract with. So keep that in mind, but this is supposed to be impartial, meaning that I'm looking at everybody equally. And as a former procurement officer, I want to see a larger pool of qualified candidates, because that means now I have more selection and I can see maybe there's new ideas I've never even thought of before and skill sets that you're bringing to the table. And that's how in a competitive market, those are the types of nuances that the more successful businesses that land the contracts get. Okay, so keep that in mind. Okay, so some of this I'm going to go through quickly, but basically what an RFP is, request for proposal or request for qualification, it's an official notice And so it has legal standing. We're putting out there, this is what we're looking for. And sometimes they'll put a budget or they put minimum qualifications. And, so jumping back a little bit, if you're not adhering to the format of and providing the information that's being requested, they can say you are you're in non-compliance, and I'm gonna put your proposal at the bottom of the deck or in the round file cabinet. So keep that in mind. But it's legal. We're putting notice out to the world, especially if it's government, because you're just taxpayer dollars and has legal ramifications. So we have a need, okay, and here's the purpose that we need that particular product or service for, where the source of the funding is coming through, what important dates. We're releasing this as of today. We're going to have a pre-bidders conference in 2 weeks. We're going to have a question and answer in 3 weeks, and the proposals due in 5 weeks. So those are all very important information and data that are contained in the RFPs and the RFQs and all of those instruments. They're basically what's called a legal instrument of putting notice to the world that this is what we need. And so some of those big proposals, like 288 pages, 300 pages, a whole section of that is just dedicated to showing that the government agency has the authority to put out bids and that they follow a certain regulatory practice and adherence to. So a big chunk of that proposal, maybe if it's a 300-pager, maybe 100 pages is dedicated just to that. And maybe even a sample contract that could be 30 pages by itself or 50 pages. So just know that those are kind of boilerplate things that establish the authority and the right of that entity to put out a bid. And that's what part of the proposal is. But you can see here, it's a portal publication, so we talked about that. So that'd be like doing business with LA County. Cal eProcure with the state of California. SAM with the federal government. Okay, RAMP with the city of LA. So those are all portals. Planet Bid. Those are all platforms where they put out notice for contract opportunities. And then plus in the actually RFP or RFQ, you can see here documents that need to be attached. So let's say if you're a construction company and you need to have a $500,000 bond in order to perform on that contract, well, they're going to want to see proof of that. Let's say you're a delivery company and you need to have $2 million in coverage, $1 million per accident and $2 million in aggregate. That's also going to name the city of Los Angeles as covered in your insurance. So we're going to need to be able to provide that. Maybe you might need to have a safety manual for your employees. And that could be an attachment that you would attach as part of the proposal. So there's important things. I want you to not get overwhelmed. I want you to realize that there's steps, simple like a checklist. And if we don't have everything, then we know that, okay, this push back the opportunity to go after a contract and make sure that we get these other business infrastructure things in place. Okay, so now we're going to talk about the process itself, okay, from start to beginning. Basically, the buyer, who is the government or the company that's putting out the contract or the utility company, they, let's say every year, come September, they're looking to hire somebody in October or November or December to provide a specialized service or to do delivery or to test their software and their website and guard and cybersecurity protections. So that's an annual contract cycle, depending on the need of the company. And most companies, that's how they operate. Then you have like the emergency. Okay, that's something we want to look at too. But generally, effective, prudent department managers and government agencies and corporations, they have a budget schedule and contract needs where they identify. So you understanding that, okay, that department, so like state of California has 250 departments. Well, let's say the California Lottery, which is one of the departments, they need to hire independent auditors twice a year. And so as an auditor, okay, as a CPR company, we know that that opportunity is going to come up because we're registered in the portal. We've done our research. We know what's coming up. We're going to prepare. So we know that that particular department is looking for that particular type of service. Same thing, okay? You can see identifies specific products or services that we're looking for. Now, keep in mind, I may have in my mind, okay, that I need a fuel-efficient diesel bus for my transit service, but all of a sudden I get a response in the proposal that you have a hydrogen or fuel cell or electric vehicle. I never thought about that. So keep in mind, these are opportunities to showcase current and future type of technologies that are much more efficient and that I wanted to be associated with. Okay, it announces formal dates, and we talked about that. That's real important. That's one of the first things you look at. When did they release this proposal? Was there a mandatory pre-bidders meeting? And if it's a mandatory meeting, if you didn't go to it, then you can't bid on it. Okay, unless you're a subcontractor to a prime that attended, there is a back way to get in that. But realize, so it's putting out all this very important, pertinent data that we're looking for, and address and method. So sometimes they'll not even ask for a printed proposal. They want you to put it in a flash disk and have 5 copies. So very specific instructions that you're going to need to look for. Okay, I talked about the pre-bidders conference. Now that the pre-bidders conference are important. So for me, when I put a bid out and I had a conference, I wanted to see, though, if it's mandatory, that means you have to attend or you can't bid. I wanted to see, okay, who is really interested, because that could help me realize that I got some serious players looking for this bid. If it's non-mandatory, I still want to see who shows up. And, you know, because as a proposal manager, and I see a company and they haven't, that I think is highly qualified, I may reach out to them and say, hey, please submit a bid. I'm interested in you being a competitor in this process. So pre-bidders conference are very important. Then you could actually go on the grounds. You could ask questions. You can do a tour if you know if that's what's required. So you get more information. The more information and data that you can recognize will help you be more competitive in your response. Okay, and there's deadlines for questions. They tell you how they evaluate proposals. And the goal is to make the short list so you could be the top 2 or top 3 or top 5 that I'm going to look at. Then there's other things that could come into play, small business certifications and those types of things. Okay, so one of the very first things when I get a proposal is I look at the table of contents. Okay, now as a former proposal writer from my partners and I and our companies, you know, what I would look at is I would go straight to the scope of work to see is that something that we can do? Okay, so I'll go to the table of contents, and then I would look at, okay, what is the opportunity? Okay, and then I'll go directly to the scope of work to see if that's something we can do. And then I would look at the format or the minimum qualifications. So you don't have to read the whole thing thoroughly. I would look at the main things. This is what I do? How much is this contract? Do I meet the minimum qualifications? What kind of documents do I need to provide? And so you can see there's a method to evaluating an RFP or an RFQ that we could take. But basically, the table of contents is very important. Okay, a checklist. So here's the actual proposal. Okay, now they're all of them, many of them, they're different. There's not one that I get all the time. Oh, can you just give me a template and I'll use that? No, I can't, because all of them are different. Now, I worked on one. A client of ours just got $1 million contract with the Bureau of Land Management, which is the Department of Interior, to do videos and PSAs and commercials and promoting the national parks and labor safety adherence to and wildlife conservation, all of those different types of things. But the proposal, so they had all these attachments and show they had the experience and blah, blah, blah. But the actual part that they measured, they called it kits. And it was for them to put the manpower plan and the budget to do a field shoot. That was one, kit one. And kit two was to do internal interviews and do everything editing and everything in-house at a studio. And that's how they did it. So different agencies sometimes will use different things. We just worked on with another client with Park and Recs for the city. And going through the RFP, I realized that that RFP had a bunch of old documents that department still used. And I've seen other departments within the city use more current forms and exhibit attachments. So each one could be different. But generally, this is a general summary of what we're looking for. So you're going to have a cover letter. And the cover letter basically is, if we are interested in applying for this bid number, blah, 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 2574. Okay, we're a company been in existence for 5 years. We specialize in providing cybersecurity and web development and software application development. We're explaining who we are, okay? And we're giving them, whoever the reader, official notice that we're applying for this contract and that we're qualified. So, so we want to make sure that we are effective communicators and we understand the different components and what they stand for. So just like in your company, you have a customer comes in, you have somebody that handles the registration of that client, okay? And here's you have somebody, more senior skilled person doing the assessment of exactly how you need to service that client. And then you're going to have performance and quality control and budgeting and invoicing. So those are different components to providing a service. Same thing with a bid proposal. And if I see you're really weak in a bid proposal, I don't know how you're going to expect to get a contract, because I'm going to say, this person is not very impressive. Yeah, and the reality is you could be the best there is out there to provide the service. But I'm looking for the holistic person and company that you could not only provide the service at a high level, but you're an effective business manager that understands that we need to comply in order to get the contract. And here's the different components. So cover letter, okay, a description of your organization. Do you have a unique approach to providing that service or that product? Okay, what is your experience and qualifications? So sometimes as a proposal writer, I may only look at your past experience and qualifications and your key staff and your budget. That might be the only two things that are really important to me. So we need to understand that each of these categories, and depending on who the contract administrator or proposal administrator is, that you're adhering to a high degree of expertise in answering this. And we will help you, okay? Resumes, the cost proposal. So keep in mind, it's not always lowest bid. it's best value. So it's a low bid with a highly qualified production, okay, of service. Then there's appendix, and if you miss an attachment, then that could be the difference. And we had a client that turned in to LA Housing, and their proposal writer forgot to include a certain requirement in the attachments, and they didn't get the contract. So we want to make sure we have a checklist and we're being thorough, because I want to do business with a critical thinker that understands here's the protocol and understands each steps and provides me with the information, versus somebody that's a little bit sloppy or missed something. And so, so that's the type of nuance that I'm looking for. Okay, the cover letter. Okay, we kind of talked about that a little bit. We want to have it on an official letterhead of your company. Okay, and remember, anything that comes from your company needs to be of the highest quality standard. We don't want to be seen as sloppy thinkers or just good enough. We want anything that comes out of your company to be high definition, accurate, answering the question specifically that I'm looking for, that's providing the information that I'm looking for. So you can see here, official letterhead, executed by the person that's authorized to bind your company in a contract. That's what I want to see. Okay, identifies the proposal, your corporate structure. Okay, maybe I'm looking for a corporation, not a sole proprietor. Even though a sole proprietor might be able to do the contract, if I know that you have a team and you have a staff that's multi-department level, that might be the difference of how I want to give that contract out. I want to understand that. Place of business. Some contracts have a local preference. I want to give a contract to somebody within LA County because that's my service area. So that's sometimes it's important where you reside. Okay. We can make mention to our overall experience and capabilities in the cover letter. So we're giving them notice right up front. You're covering all the bases. Now I'm interested. Now I'm going to take a deep dive in your proposal. Now I should be looking at your proposal anyways, whether this cover letter was sloppy, because I have a responsibility to try to find the best candidate for the agency that I'm securing contracts and proposals from. But just know that, okay? So we want to make sure that it's first introduction, first impressions mean a lot, and same thing here. Okay, so in the proposal itself, so we're going to talk about what your company is, who your company is, okay? And that we're giving them the buyer official notice we're submitting a proposal. Okay, this is who we are. So if you're looking to do an IT contract, well, we're not going to put a bunch of stuff about our sales. We want to show more about our technical abilities and to service the specific request. So we need to make sure that we're matching what they're looking for with what we provide. Okay, and then company's performance history. There is no substitute for actually doing the job in the past. Because to me, remember, it's all about a risk. So if you are, I can do this and I can do that, okay, that sounds great. I'm interested. But if I could see that you actually performed either the exact same thing or something very similar or in size and scope, that's going to make me feel better. It's going to lower the risk and make me more interested in doing contract with you. So just please know that, okay? Okay. Scope of services. So for me, I look at the dates, okay? I look at the department, and then I go right to the scope of services, because are they looking for what I sell? Okay, So, and the scope of services is critical that you get a very concise, clear understanding of what they're looking for and what department that you're going to be providing that service for, or is it for their end users, or is it for their labor, their staff, or is it for their executive core, or is it for outreach to their client base and trying to get new business? We need to have a very concise, clear understanding of what the buyer is requesting. So it's not just getting all happy. Oh, it's in IT, or it's in custodial cleanup or construction cleanup. That's what we do. That's not the approach. That should set off the radar, your radar, that this is a potential opportunity. Then we do critical reading, and to see that it's something very specific that we can provide. So we're looking when we're responding to the scope of services, they'll ask you, okay, how would you approach it? What is your methodology? Then we need to make sure that we put enough detail. So like, for instance, in that the shuttle service, we narrowed it down to the top 5, and 2 of the big companies are qualified, came in, and I said, okay, so can you tell us, what do you know about the city and the changes within the city? And the 2 big companies basically told us, oh, no, we've had 1 million of these small contracts with small cities. We guarantee you we can do the job. But that's not what I was looking for. That was not the detail. They were kind of I felt like they were taking us for granted because we were a smaller city. Versus some of the other interviewees says, well, we know now that you got the blue line and the green line is there within the city. We know that the number of schools have tripled. We know that the population that rides buses have increased because the older population has increased and there's more senior citizens use. Those were very new details that we were looking for. So that is the difference between getting a contract and not. A clear understanding of what they're looking for and matching what you can provide in detail to what they're looking for. And as you can see here, so, and also what's really important, so like, I don't know if any of you know, but there's a thing out there called Six Sigma, and it's an analytic kind of program and degree. And they have like green belts and black belts that can go in and evaluate a whole process of production or providing service or management. Anyway, so I worked with a client, and one of them had a Six Sigma employee, and he didn't even put that in the proposal. That is such a qualified specialty skill that by itself could have had them get the contract, because that shows that this manager has highly skilled staff that can do maybe more than what we need. But I want that type of person working on this contract. And you can see here also state-of-the-art technologies. Okay, so now we were talking about all the things that we can do. Okay, but now we're actually looking for the experience. And especially in the statement of qualifications, where we're probably going to run through more quickly, because we're going to spend most of the time here in the RFP, which is the fundamental format, is I want to see if you've done this work before. Now, we bid on a contract with a very large water district, myself and my partner. And one of the questions was, have you ever done high-level briefings to elected officials and to government city managers or facility directors? And so my company was only in existence about 2.5 years, so I really didn't do that. But I used to work in the government before, where I did that. So that means that my professional experience, I did that before. That means my company now has that same professional experience and performance history now. So we want to overcome those kind of things. We need to make sure. So if you have staff or your partners, if you have business partners or subcontractors that you can hire or joint venture companies that you can joint venture, it's incumbent on you as an effective business manager to recognize those nuances, because those are the companies that get the contracts. So let's say this contract is asking for 10 things and I can only do 6 of them exceptionally well. But in order to be competitive, I know I'm either going to need to hire a skilled staff person or a subcontractor or joint venture, so that has that experience. So just don't close the book and say no. Let's explore it. And then also, when you see, well, no, in my industry, these are the things they're looking for in addition, then we want to make sure that we start scaling up and developing that skill and hiring that people, so we have the capacity to perform. But past experience and qualifications are very important. Okay. References. Okay. So many contracts or RFPs will request, not only have you performed the service before, but can you give us a contact person so we can contact them to see how your performance was. And what's real important about that, if any of you that go after federal contracts, if you get a federal contract, I don't care if it's big or little, whoever the contract manager is, they score your performance and it goes into your SAM account. So me, maybe a new project manager, I can go into that and I say, hey, this company got a real high score. I could possibly just sole source the contract to you. So references are very important, and experience is very important because it shows to your ability, your business aptitude, and your adherence to performance and the quality of performance. And those are all very important things. So many times we want to look at the past accounts and we want a contact person. Oh yes, Andrew's company, they did an exceptional job, or they did a good job, but we didn't bring them back. So we want to make sure if we are going to put an account as an experience, as part of our experience, that it's going to be somebody that's going to speak highly of our performance. So that just makes common business sense. Sometimes common business sense is not so common, but we need to think those things through. And then remember, it establishes your credentials. That's what it is. So, just like if when you're going for a job interview and it's a high position, you're not going to have a family member. Oh, I'm using my family to say I'm qualified. You're going to find a past supervisor or a close professional friend that knows you and knows your professional work ethic. And that's the type of thing, the critical thinking that we want to be able to present. Okay, the cost proposal. Okay, so you could be the very best and everything, but if your proposal is not in line, so for instance, the contract that we were looking for was a 1.2, that was our budget, 1.25. And two of the biggest companies said, no, one put it into 1.9 and the other one put it at 2.1. And they said, you're going to have to pay us or that's our number. Well, they disqualified themselves out because that's not what the budget I had. And then keep in mind, when you make it to the short list, all of those companies can perform. Okay, so that's our goal, is to make it to the short list. And how do we get to the short list? Is through the RFP process and the RFQ process. So keep that in mind. But there's a methodology when you're coming up with budget. So we're not inflating our costs. Okay, so like the federal government, many times, a lot of the government agencies, they'll actually tell you your profit margin cannot be over 12% or 8%. They'll fix it. So then we got to see, can we provide that? So how do you come up with a budget? Well, we could help you with that, but part of that is, do you understand your break-even point? How much money do you need to make just to keep the wheels turning? Then you got overhead, okay? Then you got a profit margin. And what is reasonable? Business is not charity. Business is cost-effective production. And that's the type of thing that we're looking for. But we can help you with that. And you can see here, if you're providing a service, your biggest cost is going to be cost of labor. If you're providing product, then the biggest thing is going to be cost of goods. So you understanding those budget items and what it will cost you to get, and how we can propose it, and to get a contract is critically important. And one of the ways, sometimes you're saying you could do it, but I want to see your financials. So I might want to see your taxes for the last 2 years, or I want to see a current profit and loss statement year to date, or balance sheet. Because if I'm going to give you $1 million contract or $500,000 contract, I got to know that you have the financial ability and the financial management capacity to perform on this contract. So those are the kind of things. I just can't just take your word for it. I have a fiduciary duty to protect the government agency that I work for, or for the company that I'm finding the lowest risk, highest qualified contractor to perform. I have an obligation. And these are when I'm vetting out the clients, those are the kinds of things that I'm looking for. Okay, the other part is, we had talked about it, there's a lot of records. Okay, so sometimes, like in transportation, they'll say, we'd like to see your accident report or your employee safety reports. Has anybody gotten hurt? Those are attachments. Because why do I want to see that? Because that shows is you're an effective transportation company, and do you have procedures and processes in place that can handle emergency situations? Because they maybe 10% of all of the riders have incidents, or 5%. I want to make sure that you're prepared, and that if that situation comes up, that you have a process, a procedure to handle it. So sometimes that's what's up. Okay, sometimes there's weekly reports, bi-weekly reports, monthly reports. So that's kind of like contract compliance things. So your past performance, sometimes we want to see that. But you can see here, so insurance, there could be liquid damages provisions, like you hold us harmless, if it's one of your employees' fault, or we limit the damages to some things. So these are legal steps. I don't want you to get too confused with them, because we can help interpret them for you, and then they make sense, and then we know why they're there. Okay, so the evaluation. Okay, now keep in mind, it's a competitive process. Do not take for granted, just because you have the past experience or you have the best employee that can provide that service, you're going to get the contract. Sometimes a lesser qualified contractor will get the contract because they represented the best value in terms of price. And remember, I say it over and over again, that if we're looking for best value, and anybody that makes the short list, we know they can provide, they can perform. So now I'm going to start splitting hairs, me gray hairs. I'm going to split hairs to see, okay, who's going to get it. And it could be a small business certification if it's a government. Okay, so you're equally qualified, and I have goals to hit on small business certifications, and you have it, versus that other company that doesn't. That could be the difference in you getting the contract. But the things that they generally look for, okay, the criteria, and you'll see scoring on this in a minute. I want to see that you're financially stable. Because keep in mind, if you get a government contract or any big contract, you're probably not going to get paid for probably 60 days, 45. net 60, net 90 days. Sometimes the big contracts net 120 days. Can you carry those costs? Can you afford to pay your insurance? Can you keep your fleet functional? Can you pay all your staff until you get paid? I need to know that. So if you can't, well, I really like you. I'd like to give the contract, but you're not showing me that you have the financial stability to perform. So that's why a lot of times when you get contracts and you start making money, you're putting money in reserves, retained earnings. You're putting money in reserves just in case something happens. You have a pot of money, of revenue to cover those costs till you get paid. So financial stability is important. So I'm really telling you how a proposal manager, okay, is looking at your proposal, the things, the information that I got to get out. So that mitigates the risk and that makes you the most qualified individual that I want to do business with. Experience. There's no substitute for experience. If you've done it versus that other person that maybe did it part-time and you've done it already 3-4 years in a row, that's a major point getter for me. Qualifications of the firm. Okay, well, you have a contractor's license. You have a low voltage electrical engineering license. Qualifications, you're bonded, your insurance, you have all the certifications that you need that are specific to your industry. So the qualifications of the firm, because that goes to effective business management. And that's an effective business manager that has all those things in place. And that's who I want to do business with, not somebody that's scrambling. So if we don't have that right now, then we know that we're going to probably put off 3 months. I want you to look at and organizing in terms of quarters. And then we're going to start building that capacity so we can start bidding on contracts. Technical competency. You know, are you cutting edge in your industry? You know, you'll hear me say this in my other workshops is, you know, is the school that I was grown up in the older school, old school, is if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But that's just going to leave you behind because technology and new, fresh, young, bright minds are coming to the market with new ideas and new technologies and more cost-efficient ways of performing that are better for me, that are safer, that are eco-friendly, all those new nuances. So the technical competency is a main thing. So for me, that was probably the most important. But when I was looking at proposals, and then you have a personnel management program. So is your team functioning as an effective team where you have qualified labor, you have managers, on-site managers, you have executive core. I want to look at all that. I want to see how it's structured. You have AR, do you have HR? Okay, how's your payroll? Are you meeting payroll? So, you know, have you done prevailing wage? You know, those are the larger projects, you know, and where you're paying higher wages because it's required in the contract. And then obviously the cost, your budget, that is competitive. As you can see here, here's an actual criteria of a contract. So this is how they scored it. So they had the personnel, wow, 25%, that was the highest. Experience and qualified personnel. Financial ability, 15%. Qualifications, 15%. Quality of service delivery. You're smooth and on time, you don't make mistakes and have to go back and perform again. Reporting, contract compliance. You're making the job easier for me. You're performing, you're turning all your reports on time. That makes it easier for me. That's a sophisticated mind, business manager. And cost. Okay, so you can see experience and cost are the two major, the biggest categories. So just know that that's how they evaluate it. So it may be worth your time to look at how they're evaluating the proposals. So the goal is to make the short list. Okay, give me just a minute here. Okay, we want to make the short list. Okay, so if you make the short list, okay, that's what we want. Because you can make the short list and either they can bring you in for an interview, or you know that you're that small group that's being considered. But that's the goal, is to get to the short list, and you'll generally will get a letter. Congratulations, ABC company. After a thorough review of all the proposals, we feel that you are one of the higher qualified candidates, and we would like to give you notice that you're in that top 3 or top 2 or top 5 candidates for consideration. We had a client with the housing authority that there was 21 contractors, and he made it to the top 8, and that was their short list, which is kind of big, a little unusual. But that meant if there was 8 top finalists, that means everybody was pretty qualified. And so they couldn't eliminate 8 of them and bring it down to 5 or top 3. So those are the kind of, in the evaluation, that's behind the scenes what they're looking for. But that's what our goal. So sometimes when you make the short list, they'll say, okay, because you made the short list, we want to know, do you have the capacity to also perform in Ventura County? Because next year we're looking at expanding. So are you capable of providing the same service at another location in addition? So that's an inquiry, because myself, as the department manager, I know you're part of the short list, okay? And I know that come next year, 2024, we're going to expand a new market. So I want to know, are you capable of handling this contract, going another? But remember, the flip side of that coin is that maybe I'm going to give it to this company, but if I realize this other company can also do it, and they're capable of doing it in Ventura County, I'm going to keep you on the top of my list. And especially if it's private sector, I might be able to sole source you the contract. Don't even have to go to bid, because we already did this process. So keep in mind, making the short list is very, very important. And also, if the contract that I ultimately contractor choose and they can't perform, I'm going to go to the next one up, next person up to perform. So it's real important that we understand the value of making the short list. And then keep in mind, we want to ultimately get an interview. And if you make it to a short list where you're going to get an interview, you got to come in and we'll prep you for the interview. Okay. I remember when we were doing the interview of those 5 companies that made the short list on that transportation contract. One of the companies came in and they brought way too many people. Okay, they brought like 12 people, and they were insistent in making their presentation instead of answering my questions. And our city manager and the facility manager. And so you got to prepare for the interview, and you have a team, the most effective presenters of your company, and maybe you have each member handle a specific category, and that means you're well prepared. Because if I'm going to give you $500,000 contract, in this case a $1.2 million contract, I really wanted you to be prepared and bring your best people, and personality and dress and presentation, all of that is important as well. If you go and you're sloppy and you have your shirt isn't ironed, and that kind of shows a little bit of disrespect to me as the interviewer. Okay, so like when we go to a job interview, we basically wear a tie or a business suit, or unless they tell us to be business casual, and even then in business casual, I want to be presentable. And same thing with the interview if you get a contract opportunity. Okay, the interview itself. Okay, so you can see here, you basically don't want to have more than 5 people. Okay, so generally it's going to be whoever your CEO is or one of the top executives in the position. Now, remember, when I was interviewing him, I could really care less about the CEO, but it's important because I want to see what kind of business structure he's built and who he's hired and who's the skilled staff and other skilled executives that of the team that he was able to build. So that was important. But for me, in that transportation, I wanted to see who was the transit director, who was the person that was going to actually be in charge of providing the service to my city. So those are the types of people that I wanted there. So maybe somebody who could do a good presentation, somebody that can talk about the technical expertise that we can provide, and somebody that can talk about our management and contract compliance, and somebody who can, if something falls through the crack, can speak up and make sure that we didn't leave anything not on the table. Okay. Okay, most interviews are they try to structure it for 30 minutes to an hour. If you get in the interview and you last an hour, that's good. And if they're asking you a lot of questions, that's good, because that means they're really serious. They're taking a deep dive to see who you are. And you can see now presentation materials. So reality, I didn't want you to hand me a whole bunch of stuff that I have to read. Okay, if you had some presentation materials that were high definition, reader friendly, very attractive, that match the quality of service that I'm looking for, I'll take it. But don't give me anything to read, really. Okay, because I already read your proposal. And if I read 21 proposals that are averaging 50 pages each, I want you to think about that. I'm only human, and I don't want a bunch of more stuff. Why do I have to dig for information when you could tell me? And so keep that in mind, okay? Those are just personal kinks. That is the subjective piece. But if your professional integrity, your professional presentation, having confidence in what you bring into the table and being able to articulate that and to answer the questions and match what they're looking for with what you sell, that's what the key thing that we're looking to do here, okay? Okay. Okay, so now here's some things about the proposal. So we want to make sure, okay, that you're following directions, so you understand all the timelines, you're meeting all the timelines, because that's somebody, if you miss a timeline, why do I want to do business with you? Because that means you're probably going to miss timelines in your performance. Okay, is there a mandatory pre-bidders conference? Remember, if it's mandatory, if you do not attend, you cannot apply for the contract. And that's kind of like a minimum threshold, because I want to see who's interested. And that's a form of showing respect for yourself, because you're going to go to this pre-bidders conference, and you could ask questions. You could see what the project is going to be. You're following the guidelines, acknowledging the amendments. So keep in mind, so I may put out an RFP in June, and then to the pre-bidders conference and some of the questions that may have come up after that, I realized that, oh, okay, we forgot to put something, or we need to include something additional to the RFP. So what do? I make an amendment and I attach it and I send it out. So if you do not acknowledge that on July 17th there was an amendment, I'm going to hold you as non-compliance, because I only want to review updated information from contractors that have seen that there's been adjustments to the RFP. So now you're being responsive to the entire RFP process, including addendums or amendments. And that's really important. your financial capacity. I'm going to look at that. You know, so one of the companies that we were recommending for that transportation, they were fairly new. They had been in business just 5 years, which was the minimum threshold, and they were like sitting at about 3 million a year. That was a little bit small, but when we looked at their P&L statement and their taxes, we saw that there was they made money and that they were able to put in reserves. So that's another important thing. If you're making money and you're trying to, nobody wants to pay taxes, but you really fudge where you're showing you're making a very little small profit, I'm going to tell you that's going to come back and bite you. Because if I could see you only have a 3% or 2% or 5% or maybe even a 10% profit, I know that you're really you're lowballing your contracts, and that's not the kind of risk or client I want to deal with. I want somebody that manages their money well, that has a reserve account. So if they got this contract, they can go ahead and put all these expenditures up front. And I am confident that they have the money and stability to perform. Okay, right to an appeal. So generally, I would say don't do that because you'll red flag yourself. However, me and my partners, or my partners and I, we bid on a contract, and we made it to the short list of 3, and they were going to give it to these 2 other big contracts. And this contract was a small one; it was about just under $70,000. And those other companies, one was in Texas and one was actually in Canada. And I just felt that that was just not right. And I used to run a transit system the next city over. We knew the city. We brought a high degree of quality service to the table. So I said, you know what? That's not right. They're going to give it to these other companies, and the money's not going to stay local. We're going to hire local. And we protested. And it turned out we ended up getting the contract. So I can't say don't do it, but we need to pick and choose. If do you have a realistic chance of appealing the contract and being considered? So we had a client recently that did something in Palm Springs, and they bid on a contract and they didn't get it. And it turned out that the company that got awarded did not have the required license to perform. So there, absolutely, we needed to protest that, because that means that somebody internally just wanted to give it to their favorite. And if that person didn't meet minimum qualifications of having the actual contractor's license that they needed, it was a very specific one, then that system is flawed. The process is flawed. So that's when you do it. But generally, if you protest, you're gonna kind of red flag yourself, especially if there's an opportunity that you can go back and get a contract later with them. So we have to really think about that, okay? And then you can see here, there's compliance with laws and regulatories. So remember, a contract is a legal document. It's a legal agreement. So we need to know that. So generally, when it comes to the government, they need to establish that they have the regulatory authority to put contracts out there, and you'll see that that will come in the final agreements. And then assurance and bonding and reporting and requirements as well. Okay, now I'm going to run through this section a little bit quicker, but statement of qualifications. Now, remember, when I mentioned that, what you can do also is, let's say we're going after our target market, and I'm going to do a letter of introduction. Okay, now we're proactively. We're not just waiting for RFP sent our way. We could also use this as a proactive strategy, where I identified a company that's very similar to the types of companies I always service. Okay, I'm going to do my research on that company. I'm going to find a point of contact. I'm going to do a letter of introduction. I'm probably going to have a high quality capability statement, but if I have enough body of work, I can also put a statement of qualifications to show that not only I can do all of this stuff, but I've done it. And that is a very effective, proactive target marketing for clients. If we don't want to just wait for hearing from the portals, we can proactively go for it. So a statement of qualification is critically a very valuable piece, to me, the most valuable, because it actually showcases that you've done the work. And, you know, and certain statement of qualifications will ask you, was there any unique challenges in performing? Because I want to see that. He goes, yeah, we ran in, we were doing construction and we ran into an underground river that delayed it. Well, how did you overcome that? You know, so we want to see you had any unique challenges and how did you overcome it? And what was the ultimate outcome? And what was the return on the investment to the client? And so that's important to know. But anyway, so it's very unique. It really sets vendors apart, and it's really about qualifications. And we could use that as a pre-qualified strategy that I want to get the top 5 candidates that can all perform. Because I know I need one here in LA County. I need one in San Diego County. Okay, we're thinking of going to Nevada. So I want to be able to get pre-qualified clients that have actually performed, because this document spells it out. Okay, and as you can see here on the bottom here, I said it establishes a pool of vendors. I want to increase the pool of qualified vendors. So sometimes the RFP process is about, I can do this and I can do that, and here's some of our contracts we work with. But this one is focused on actual performance and service delivery. And you did high tech or new methodologies or new products that you brought to the table. Like, for instance, I have a security company and they're looking to land contracts. Well, now we're realizing that drones can be utilized for security, or they could use it to inspect deteriorating buildings. So all of a sudden, drones, that new technology, is exploding. So if you have that ability and your competitor doesn't, and you've actually used drones as part of your security surveillance or whatever, that is the kind of technology that sets you apart. And myself, you're the expert, not me. When I see that, I say, oh man, that's cutting edge. That is very impressive. I'm moving you up on the list. Okay, so keep that in mind. Okay. Okay, so the RFP process. So very similar to the RFP process. Okay, so we're actually putting notice out there. So either I'm going to use this process to select a contractor, or I'm going to use the SOQ process to see who's out there and maybe limit the pool who can bid on this contract to the ones that have most experience. So I really want you to understand how valuable a statement of qualifications, SOQs, are. But the same thing, we're going to talk about what the project opportunity is, what the scope of work or scope of services are to be. Okay. We're going to want you to put it in a proposal form. Okay, there's going to be a certain evaluation process, very similar, okay, to the RFP. So let's say when I'm looking at experience, because this is all about experience, statement of qualifications, I'm looking for minimum 5 years. And I have that company comes in at 6 years. But I have another company that's been in that industry and had big clients that have done it for 10 years. Well, I'm going to tell you, I'm going to start leaning towards the 10-year qualifications, because they have a longer established performance history of providing quality services. So keep that in mind. Okay, doesn't mean that we can't overcome those challenges, but just keep that in mind, because that's the rule of thumb. and don't count yourself out. Let's take a crack at it. Okay, but as you can see here, and then I'm looking to get to the qualified vendor list. And from that list, I'm going to award the contract, which I had just mentioned. Anyway, so the goal is, so let's say we came to the short list, and so now we put out an RFP. Now only those 5 companies or those 3 companies can bid on it. Okay, and then we put an RFP out in association. Generally, when we got the water district contract, they only utilize the statement of qualifications as the proposal. So it can be used in a couple of different ways. Then we did vendor interviews. That's what the process is, and then we award the contract. Very similar to the RFP. Okay, so now when we put our so this is a request for a statement of qualifications. So basically, what we do is we're going to put what the project summary is. Okay, it identifies who the buyer, what department, what government, okay, what agency, okay. There's usually an explanation of why they need it. So the Department of Defense and their cybersecurity for residential service members at the barracks, they have a certain type of thing. Well, we're explaining who we are, what the service and the demographics that we're servicing. So all that information, we need that, because that way we can start being scientific and critical thinking and matching what we can provide with exactly what they're looking for. So it's not a one size fits all. It's, you're not trying to put a square peg in a round hole. We want to match it as close as we can, because that's what critical thinkers do, and innovative business managers do, okay, and effective business managers do. So these details are critical to help us really showcase what we're bringing to the table. And even if we hadn't done that a specific thing, but we get it, and we think we can develop the capability of doing it, that's why we need to know about it. Do not take for granted any information that they're giving you. Okay, and they're basically telling you that they have the legal authority to put out the request and to begin the process. And then there's the project opportunity. So basically what it is, that's kind of like the scope of work. Okay, that's a description of what they're expecting from the provider. Okay, so that could be like minimum qualifications, but we expect you to be there 24/7. You have a full-time assigned staff, at least 5 minimum. That you're going to have these particular vehicles or this type of software being utilized. So we're telling you right up front. They're telling you what they're expecting, and then the scope of work of what you'll actually be doing. Okay, and in the scope, the request for the statement of qualifications, how they want you to organize it. What is the format that's going to showcase all of that skill set? Okay, so same thing. There's administrative requirements, announcements to show they have the authority to do it, what department that it comes from, where the revenue source is coming from. Okay, remember, these are all legal documents that we're looking at. Okay, and then now when we look at the statement of qualifications, so generally it's we do a letter of well, here's the format. So we need to follow the format exactly how they're requesting. So like I told you, we had that one client that put a bid in and they forgot to put an attachment. They got them knocked out. We got to make sure that you get another fresh set of eyes to double check all the work that you're doing, to make sure that we didn't leave something out, okay, or that we needed to include something, a special skilled staff member, or a special methodology, or a special piece of equipment or product, that we're not leaving that out. We're maximizing the opportunity to get that contract. Okay, so, but sometimes they could say, so I see contracts where they'll say, we're limiting the proposal packet or the statement of qualification packet to no more than 1 or 2 gigabytes. And so if you don't know how to compress your document to adhere, because if you send a document that's 2.5 gigabytes, you're not in compliance. And even though you could be the best, if I can't overcome that mistake, I'm going to hold you as non-compliant, and I'm sorry, you can't move forward on the process. So keep that in mind. Okay, we clearly want to see your company's qualifications. Okay, so that's credentials and experience and all of that. Service categories to be considered. So if I'm asking you to do landscaping and using eco-friendly products, I want to see that you have a department that does it. I would like to see your suppliers and what type of supplies that you're purchasing, and that they're adhering to what I'm looking for, because those are specific categories that I'm looking for to score you on. And so we want to make sure that we're adhering, we recognize it, and we're addressing it. Okay, and then quality staff. Like I told you, I could care less about the CEO. I was more interested in the project manager or the transit director. That's because that was who's going to be working and providing the service to me. So skilled staff, or are critically important. Cover letter is going to be basically the same thing as the request for proposal. Letterhead, authorized by a person that can bind your company to a contract. We want to know about your corporate structure, where you're in business. So if you're in business, like I have a client, and she's always, I hope she's not on here, she's always trying to get business in Sacramento, and she's here located in LA. I'm telling her, I'm going to tell you, even though we could use technology, part of this contract is you physically being there. And when I look at it and I see you got to travel, and that's going to be extra expense and time, and you're not going to be as accessible as I need to know that you're local. So, those are all considerations that a prudent proposal manager or a contract manager is looking for. And remember, addendums, amendments and addendums, you need to keep track of them. And so we were working on that one proposal, and I know there was 3 addendums, and then it turns out there was 5. And so when I finally got access to the portal, I said, look, man, we would have turned this thing in. Now we're still waiting to hear, but you only acknowledged 3 addendums. So the other 2, which were critical, okay, that could disqualify you. So we caught that. So it's always good to have a new, fresh set of eyes to go over everything, to make sure we're adhering to the formatting and to the entire protocol process. And that's critically important. So same thing and your company's qualifications. So the reality, sometimes all the procurement or proposal manager will do is go directly to your qualifications, and then to your budget, and make sure you have the insurance to cover, or the bond. Sometimes that's really all that they're looking for. They'll look at the other stuff because those are eligibility criteria to make sure you're adhering, and they're kind of like checklist templates that I need to include. But for me, I want to make sure that you have the qualifications, the technical competency to do exactly what I'm looking for. Okay, so I'm a supplier, and I'm getting all my product from overseas. Are we short on time?
No, we have time, but
Okay.
we should have the questions also answered.
Okay, well, let me move forward. Anyway, so in the technical competency, so if you're a distributor and you're located in California and you're getting your product from overseas, let's say from Australia or Japan, well, I know that it's going to take probably 2 to 3 months to get that product shipped. versus a company that's here local and a local manufacturer that can turn around that product delivery in 3 weeks. Well, that could be a difference. That is technical compliance. And so, you know, those kind of delays, we want efficiency and immediacy, okay, and local, you know, that. So, and then past performance to show to qualify that you've done it. And as you can see, is there any special methodologies, procedures you're utilizing? So that's the same thing like in the RFP process. Special preference. You know, so if you've done something special on a contract that I may not be asking for, but it's related in your industry, and you could bring that to this contract that you've actually performed, I maybe never even consider it. But now that I know you can do it, I'm moving you up to the higher up on the list because I didn't think of that. And that's the advantage of learning new technologies and new, fresh, increasing the vendor pool and those types of things. So if you don't have the experience, okay, if a respondent has no experience on providing the service, then how are you going to address it? Well, we're going to hire staff, or we're going to subcontract, or we're going to joint venture. So just don't say you don't have the experience. Let's look at it. And maybe it's a matter of time, or if we built that network so we can competitively bid, that's what we want to do. And as you can see here on the bottom, these are small certifications, small business certification, 8A, that's with the federal, small business enterprise, disadvantaged business enterprise. These are all specialized categories that if it's government contracting, you make the short list first, and your competitors don't have these, and you do, that could be the difference in you getting the contract. So to me, even though I'm a state contractor and I don't utilize the 8A contract, because that's federal, the fact that I know you have an 8A, which is a very difficult small business certification to get, the fact that you have that tells me you understand procurement. You've gone through the vetting process and the duration, and to prove that you're a high likelihood of succeeding, which is a criteria of these certifications. Even though I don't use the 8A, the fact that you have it, that shows that you have a higher business IQ, a higher acumen, business acumen. And that's the type of things that we look for. So these are like subtle things that I'm telling you that a proposal reader is looking for. And as you can see, here's the evaluation, very similar, okay? Your technical competence, okay? Performance on the same or related types of projects. Responsiveness, that you're adhering to the directions in the RFP process or the RFQ process. That you're doing performing in accordance to it, okay? Your communication skills, you know, that's why we need to know that you are actually being able to communicate exactly, answering the questions that I'm looking for, or that you're bringing a value added that I didn't even consider. Okay, so you being an effective communicator is important. Accessibility to staff. So let's say I like you, and it's, well, you know, I'd like to talk to your transit director, or I'd like to talk to your accountant that does contract compliance measures. You know, they could ask you strange requests like that, but you know that you're accessible, you're open, that you have confidence in your staff and in your departments to perform, and that you're flexible and ready because things could change. I made this contract for $200,000, and then during the contract, I realized that there was a whole other thing that needs to be a part of this, and we can do a change order, and you have the capability of doing that additional service. I want to be able to see, one, you have the skill set to do it, and you have the staffing, and then I can change more and give you more money. Okay, so you're flexible, you're consistent, professional to perform, but you're flexible because you are more than just your minimum requirements. So please know that. Same thing, evaluation process, very similar. So this is one for a request for proposal. Very similar, as you can see. Okay, you make the short list. Okay, so what will happen is internally, I'll put the list together, the top 5, and I'm going to put the top quality one that I think on first. Then it's going to be a hierarchy. So we're going to rank them internally, and then maybe out of the top 5, we only interview the top 3. Okay, but we'll send you a letter of notification that you made the short list, and we'll give you an interview date. Okay, and then if you get the award, sometimes when you get the award, it's a time that, because they've already decided on you, we might be able to renegotiate additional measures in the contract. And anyway, so you can see here, so we can, and sometimes you can make the short list, and the company says, you know what, none of these candidates quite make what we're looking for. So then they put the bid back out to bid. Well, so that happens. I've seen that happen. And with one of our real big clients, that landed a huge contract at the VA. And it turns out that the 4 companies, it was $1 billion in contracts, were already awarded. And it turns out that none of those companies had the high security clearance, the cybersecurity clearance, so they didn't qualify. So they had to rebid it. And one of our clients landed one of the contracts. So just know that's could be part of the process. And then if you make it to an interview, it's going to be very much the same. If you get an interview, you're going to come and see us. And it's important that you speak their language. So if you're in a technical field and we're talking about GPS, we're not going to go in there and say, yeah, we got special kind of radar equipment that can help track our vehicles. Well, that's not really the GPS is really the scientific term that we need to use. So we need to make sure that we're speaking the language that they're looking for, that represents that we're a high quality, qualified individual in our industry and our profession. And then you get the contract award, and we can renegotiate maybe opportunities, or we could see what additional requirements are needed. And that'll be the time that triggers that we need to go get that higher insurance, or we need to get that corporate bond, or there's something special that we need to do, that now we need to buy vehicles, or need to buy the software, or we're going to need to hire these additional staff members, or I need to actually execute the subcontract with my subcontractor. And so those are types of things that are involved. So that in essence is the workshop. I just want you to understand that this process is how we're going to source contracts and get revenues. And you can see it's methodical, and it's designed to weed out the lesser qualified and to zoom in the higher qualified and to get to the short list. And so it's important for you to understand all these elements and these nuances that really showcase your expertise and your ability to perform. And that's what this is for. So if you take this process for granted, I guarantee you're going to have great difficulty securing a contract. But if you understand it, and we're always going to learn more and have better business practices and tweak our presentation and better understand the different types of RFPs and RFQs and RFIs, or invitations to bid, requests for a quotes that are out there. Once we learn in our field what is the range and all the subtleties that they're looking for, is important, and thus the effective business managers have a higher likelihood of getting of contracts. And with that, I would like to turn over if there's any questions.
Yes. Okay. Thank you, Andrew. Thank you, everyone. I think you will agree with me that there were a lot of information, all very useful. And anyone who wants to expand the business, you want to go to like government contracting, even with bigger corporations. This is like the information you need, and these are the steps that you have to take. Moving forward. There were a couple of questions. Some people asked me if this recording will be submitted, to the participants, to the attendees. I want to say yes and no. Yes, in the sense that this will be available, but we are not forwarding the link to the attendees. The link will be available on the City of Glendale website, and also in our website under the e-library. We have an e-library where you can find a lot of workshops that you can go watch them at your time, so you can find the recording also there. There are a couple of questions. I tried through the course to respond to the questions, but there are a couple of things that I would like Andrew, you just little again, address them again. So there was a question asking, is there room for negotiation with the money portion? What if the government likes your company, but you are too expensive? Will they come back and say, I need to lower my bid?
No, they'll just say you're not qualified because you're over budget. Okay, so if that's how you're going into a contract, that's not the type of person I want to do business with. I want to do business with somebody who understands what my budget is and understands that their business and how they can make a profit, and that is best value. So like I had mentioned, we had one contract that came in. I'll give two examples. One that was too high, the one that was 1.9, and I only have 1.2. Well, that company was highly qualified, but I'm sorry, I don't have the budget. So they priced themselves out. We had another client that low bid, and they low bid by 90 grand of then the next lowest one. And I looked at that. Well, you know what? If you low bid, that means that either you're desperate for the money or you made a mistake. So when we interviewed them, because they were qualified, and it turns out they made a big mistake. That 90 grand, they thought that we were going to provide the shuttle buses, and no, they needed either to buy them, or I already have a fleet, or to lease them, and that's where the 90 grand difference came in. So they made a mistake and they were out. So when it comes to budget, you may have a little better success in the private sector. They got a little bit more room. But look, why should I pay you $100,000 more than somebody who is equally qualified that can do it for $100,000 less? Okay, so please keep that in mind. But when it comes to time to submitting a bid budget, we can help you. Okay, we can help you figure out, and it's as simple as this: determining, in order to perform this service, how much will it cost just to perform the service? So we look at manpower hours and insurance and all of that, okay? And once we know what it costs just to perform, then we look at a little bit of overhead. It could be bonding, compliance staff that's doing the reporting, okay? And then we could look at profit margin. And then we can play with that to make sure that we do not want to lose money, okay? And we're not in it to break even. We're in it to make some profit, but it needs to be reasonable.
Okay, like Alit that asked that question, while you were answering, he asked, how do I know what their budget is? Is that disclosed?
Sometimes
I think you already answered, but you
well, let me answer it again. So sometimes they'll tell you, like I'm looking at a proposal that I'm going to work on with my client that's looking for that Sacramento contract. They said right up front what their budget is, 150 to 200,000. So I guarantee you, if you go in at 200,000, and somebody is equally qualified comes in at 160,000, who do you think is going to get the contract? Okay. And then the second part of that question is, you just can't make up dollars. Okay. I'm not saying that you do. Okay. But there's industry standards. So remember, you're competing. And if you're way over everybody else, then that means that's telling me as a proposal reader or as a contract manager that you're just inflating and you're just looking to make money. And if you know, unless sometimes in technology, advanced technology, you might be able to, okay, because it's cutting edge and they haven't really, you know, but it's still got to be within a budget. There's no handing somebody a blank check and that they can do it. So if you're just money oriented instead of service oriented, I guarantee you probably won't get too many contracts. I don't want to be blunt, but that's I want more of a team player that's going to work with me, and not somebody that's trying to take money from me.
So another question is, how are new startups handled in the competitive market, especially the P&L portion? Also, do they look at company's website?
Well, I'm going to tell you, absolutely, they're going to look at not only your company's website to see, do you do what you're saying you did in the proposal? Okay. But I'm also going to look at your LinkedIn, and I'm going to look at your Facebook, you know, and I'm going to tell you, let's say in your Facebook, you like to hang out at, you know, places that I'm not comfortable with. And remember, it's subjective, because if I'm going to give you a $500,000 contract or $100,000 contract, I got to make sure you're a person of good character and that you're a good citizen and a good corporate citizen. And I'm going to vent that out. And if you kind of are a little bit on the shady end, you know, or, you know, sometimes you got to look at your friends. Now that should not be the process that's utilized, but keep that in mind. We always want to present ourselves as individuals of high integrity. And if you have a special interest and it's clean, then it's good. But keep that in mind. They're gonna check your social media out, because I need to make sure that I'm giving the money to somebody I can rely on of good character. The first part of that question was
the first part was about startups, how new startups are handled in the competitive market.
Well, there's no substitute for the experience, okay? So we got to start off somewhere. You know, sometimes there's certain skill sets that you could be, like engineer or architect or an attorney or some high skill level, maybe an IT that you can, but we got to start building a track record. So you're not just going to high step into a quantum leap into a big contract. You got to earn your way. And there's just no substitute for that, because as a procurement officer, I may like you, you're telling me all the right things, and I want to encourage you, but my minimum qualifications say 3 years or 5 years. And, you know, that you've done accounts on this in the past, these types of accounts. So there's really no substitute. But keep in mind, you can hire a subcontractor, or you can subcontract to a company to go on this contract or joint bid. So don't just tell you no, okay? Because remember, if you have the professional experience working for another company, and even though your company is technically a startup, but keep in mind, kind of the rule of thumb, we really want you to be in business at least 1 year, okay? And the rule of thumb is you've been in business 5 years, because if you've made in business 5 years, that means you've already kind of gone through your ups and downs and adjustments, and you know your niche market, and you perfected your methodology and how you're operating the business, and that you're keeping with the trends in your industry. You know, those are the things that we look for. So there's no substitute for actual experience, But if you have performance and professional history, or you can joint venture, there's a possibility.
Karen raised his hand to ask a question. So Karen, you are on mute. You can unmute yourself and ask your question.
I apologize. That was an accident, but thank you.
I'm sorry. Okay. That's so. So there was one more question. The other question is about statement of qualification. The question was like how they should get that there, where it will they be notified, or how they should submit their statement of qualification.
Okay, well, I just went through all of that. So, so typically what it is for a statement of qualification, it's either you're registered in a vendor portal, okay, where you have all your NEX codes, and here's the industries we service, and the platform itself recognizes your 6-digit NEX code, and they send you a request for a statement of qualifications. Or we can create one ourselves, and we identify a target market or a target client that we want to go after, and we can create one. So we can help you put that together, okay? But generally it's registered in the platforms, and you'll receive what's called a request for a statement of qualifications.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's all about contract sourcing or target marketing.
So if anyone has any other question, please raise your hand. I can I can unmute you and you can ask your questions. So Shelley is asking, when you say we can create a statement of qualification, you mean that I can contact that she can contact you and we do it together? So Andrew, do you want to answer this question?
Well, so if you're looking for any help in procurement, depending on your annual revenues, we'll fit you into a program. Then we can start working with you on the procurement process and proposals, and we can help you. And it's going to depend on your industry. So I generally only work with clients of $500,000 or more. That doesn't mean that I can't be part of the team that's assisting you. So keep that in mind. So you need to register as a client. All of our services are free, okay? And once you're enrolled and you adhere to what we're asking, then we can sit down and come up with a strategy on how what kind of technical assistance we can help provide for you.
Okay, thank you. Alit raised his hand. Alit, so you can unmute yourself and ask your question.
Hello. Thank you for the great briefing. It was really high level and very informative. I got your form from Bartui.
Yes.
I'm gonna go ahead and fill it out and get it to you. My question was in regards to say like a post popped up, right? And there's a cybersecurity service that the government wants. Should I be working immediately, get in contact with your office and start working on putting together a proposal immediately, or like what's the process of that like? Because I know you guys are busy.
Okay, so let me just tell you this, okay? I don't work with everybody, okay? If you're not qualified, so what we're going to do, we're going to enroll you. We're going to do an assessment. If you see an opportunity, like you got a request for a proposal, and that you think that you can perform on, then once you're enrolled, we'll sit down with you and we'll meet with you, and you'll send me the RFP, and we can go over it together. And if it looks like something you want to pull the trigger on, then we'll take next steps of what we need to do to format a proposal and come up with a bid budget. So we'll work with you to identify that. So if you've been in, you're bringing a skill set. You said cybersecurity. Is that what you said?
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah, that's really in demand. There's a lot of opportunities out there right now. The technology has grown, and especially with the infrastructure bill and the Tax Inflation Reduction Act, we're starting to see a lot of contracts coming down the pipeline. And so if that's the industry you're in, there's a lot of contract opportunities coming down the pipeline, and so we would love to work with you.
Okay, I'll get you the form. And just bottom line up front, I'm still in the military. I have my LLC created, my bank accounts and stuff, but I'm still lacking some guidance. So any help would be greatly appreciated.
Yeah, well, just remember, sometimes it's about timing, you know, and we don't want to rush into something that we're not prepared to perform upon. Okay, but it sounds like you're putting your infrastructure together, and you're identifying potential target markets that you can go after. And then once we have our business infrastructure and you're able to work full-time on a contract, then that's the time to pull the trigger. Okay, but come in and see us, and we can design a strategy moving forward. And maybe we need to wait a year, or wait 3 months or 6 months. But you know, remember, look how fast time flies. So us starting now, and in no time we'll be there. So keep that in mind. We look forward to working with you.
Thank you.
Okay, I don't see any more questions or
Okay,
any more hands raised.
Okay, well, let me close. So
Yes.
we want to thank you. Now, this is kind of a more advanced training. And even if you didn't understand everything that was being presented, it's good for you to take a step back and look at the big picture, and look at it like books on a bookshelf, or like checks on a checklist of things that we need to understand and build the capacity to perform, and acknowledge that these are important aspects of business development and business model creation, and the ability to scale. And you know, I commend everybody who is a business owner, because it takes a special person to be able to recognize that they have a skill or a product that they're willing to take to market. So this, you know, so just like in sports, you're on the farm team and you make it to the big leagues. Now you're in one of the big teams. Well, now it's not that be so happy you got there. Now it's time to grow, and let's see what you got, and let's develop the confidence, and let's perfect our product or service so we can be competitive and we can start growing. And if we got to start off small, then that's how we start off. And then we start building a track record. We start making money. We start stashing a little bit of money so we can grow and reinvest in the company, and we can grow. We can build a team. We can find markets and start pursuing those markets. And so the fact that you're attending this workshop and that you are a small business owner, I want to congratulate you, because those are the individuals that have the most likelihood of succeeding, that are getting the training and understanding what is the road ahead of them, and setting goals and timelines. Those are all very, very important things. And that's why we really enjoy our collaboration with the city of Glendale, and just know that we're here to help you. And with that, I want to thank everybody.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great rest of the day. Thank you, Andrew. Andrew, can you stay?
Yes.
Thank you.